Hi viewers, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to give you a brief summary of the short story fiction The Collector of Treasures, and side by side we will also be analyzing Bessie's style of writing, what approach did she followed on her writings, the major themes which contributed to her writings, what were the impacts of colonialism. Apart from all these, what the text actually demands. Bessie Head's notable short fiction story, The Collector of Treasures, was originally published in 1977. The setting of the story is in a traditional Botswana village. If we talk about her style of writing, she probably dealt primarily with the fate of women in African society, biracial identity, oppressive attitudes of men over women and children, oppression within African culture, women's problems which are rooted in custom and tradition, dominant position of men over women, changes that men in South Africa have undergone in the century and a half since their traditional tribal culture came under the domination of European imperialism. Apart from all these, the text also demands equality of both men and women, women's self-esteem, reconstruction of an older mode of masculinity, which occupied much of her writings. In my previous video, we saw how she was struggling in her way of journey from racism, apartheid, personal exile, unhappy marriage, the sense of outsider not really belonging to any ethnic group, settling down as refugee, which had a deep impact on her mind, which we feel when we go through her literary works. Now the question arises, why does she give the title The Collector of Treasures by using its title for the whole collection, The Collector of Treasures and Other Botswana Village Tales? Even if Head had not focused attention on The Collector of Treasures by using its title for the whole collection, there is little doubt that the story would have been its centerpiece. So, The Collector of Treasures is important because it brings together many issues with which Head has been preoccupied, especially the need for a new construction of masculinity on the basis for the hope that women and men might build new relationships out of the destruction produced by colonialism. As Nigel Thomas points out, the arrangement of stories contributes to their meanings. Indeed, by positioning The Collector of Treasures as the second to last story, Head ensures that the story gains impact, as to which the collection has been leading. So, The Collector of Treasures is one of them. The work, we can say, is written both from a post-colonial approach as well as from a feminist perspective. Botswana gained independence from its colonial masters in 1966, and Bessie's story, The Collector of Treasures, was published after the independence, that is, in 1977, after her adoptive homeland had just become an independent nation. So we see how she was committed to a mode of fiction that might transmit a new construction of the African male, or what occasionally seems a reconstruction of an older mode of masculinity. As she surveyed the impact of generations of colonial domination on African men and the post-colonial atmosphere in Botswana in the years following its independence, she was struck by the evidence that colonialists' oppression and post-colonial freedom have had equally devastating effects on Botswana men and therefore on Botswana women as well. So let's begin with a brief summary. Let me tell you, when you read the text, there is no mention of her name at the very first. It is only stated that a female character is being taken to prison. Also, we see the story has three phases. At first, Dickledy, who is a viewpoint character who is in a prison. Then second phase, that she acts as a mouthpiece of Bessie and tells about the two categories of men, Thirdly, why she is in prison, the reason behind her imprisonment, what had she done, how, when, and where. So, the story begins with Dekality's imprisonment. The action takes place in the form of media res, or in the middle of the action. Dekality is being taken to prison inside a truck surrounded by many policemen, and she was arrested from her village, Pulan. She is the main protagonist of this story. Finally, inside the prison, she meets a lady inspector who tells her that there are four other women inside the same prison for exactly the same kind of crime that she has committed. Dekality had murdered her own husband by severing his genitals, and all the other women are imprisoned for the same crime, convicted of murdering their profligate husbands. Dekality meets Kiboni, who was imprisoned for the same crime. Together, they become very good friends. Before having breakfast, Kiboni explains all the rules and regulations of the prison to Dekality. From the outset, Bessie makes clear that Dekality is one of many African women convicted of murdering their profligate husbands. What has pushed these women towards such desperate acts to free themselves from bad marriages is the recent deterioration of heterosexist relations in post-colonial Africa. So let's begin. At the mess hall, it is the male prisoner who serves the food. As their friendship grew more intense and strong, Kiboni tells Dekality about her life and how her husband used to ill-treat her. The story of Kiboni serves as a prologue to Dekality's tragic tale. Hypocritically, Kiboni's husband, a school administrator, punished the male teachers for making sexual advances towards their female students, but he himself was guilty of impregnating schoolgirls. More important, he is guilty of spousal abuse. Kiboni tells Dekality that he used to kick me between the legs when he wanted that. When she went to confront her husband, he abused her very badly, and she, in a fit of rage, cuts off his genital and killed him. This is the reason why she is arrested and imprisoned. She begins her story with an assertion: our men do not think uh, that we need tenderness and care. As days goes by, the chief comes to inspect. After the inspection gets over, the women are taken to an open sunny yard fenced in by high barbed wire, where they did their daily work. The women produced garments of cloth and wool. The men did carpentry, shoemaking, brickmaking, and vegetable production. Dekality was very skilled in making baskets, knitting, and weaving, and she tells Kiboni that when she faced financial crisis at home, she used to utilize her skills to earn money and run the home and feed her children. Kiboni feels pity hearing this and encourages Dekality to earn money for her children by working in prison using her specialized skills. Thus, their friendship develops into a close-knit bond. Then we come to narrator's analysis. Men divide themselves according to the narrator's analysis into two categories. The first category comprises men who are loving mates and responsible fathers. Such men are like Paul Thebolo, who is the loving husband to Penelope, Decality's neighbor and friend. It becomes the blessing for Decality that she has the opportunity to meet a representative of the other construction of masculinity. He turned all his resources, both emotional and material, towards his family life. Uh, Sad to say, such men represent the minority in contemporary Southern Africa. The majority are represented by the husbands of Kiboni and Dekality, who act like male dogs during sex. One such man was Garisigo, the husband of Dekality. Garisigo married Dekality because she was semi-literate and presumably submissive. Now that independence has arrived for African men, Head reminds us Garisigo can become the sexual maverick, independent like his nation. Garisigo feels no compunction about abandoning his family so that he can pursue the excitement of educated women. Such women offer excitement because they far excel his wife in knowledge of sexual technique. So Dekeleti then tells Kibani about her past life. She tells Kibani that she had helped Paul in settling down in her village. Paul built his house in the yard space adjoining Dekeleti's hut. Over a course of time, Paul, his wife Penelope, become very good friends. Dekeleti used to share everything with Penelope. She used to make dresses for Paul's children. And this narrative contextualizing of the story helps to explain how men like Garicigo, the husband of the female protagonist, or we can say viewpoint character Dekeleti, erupted onto the post-colonial scene as expressions of an especially exploitative construction of masculinity. Speaking of men like Garicigo, the narrator indicates in the old days before the colonial invasions of Africa, he was a man who lived by the traditions and taboos outlined for all the people by the forefathers of the tribe. He had little individual freedom to assess whether these traditions were compassionate or not. The narrator continues the colonial era and the period of migratory mining labor to South Africa broke the hold of ancestors. So, the friendship of the two women becomes one of those deep, affectionate, sharing everything, a kind of friendships that only women know how to have. When Penelope learns the truth about her husband, Garicigo, because Dekeleti is such a special friend, Penelope offers to loan Paul as a lover to Dekeleti. Such as Dekeleti has become a collector of treasure or gestures of tenderness and love. Penelope's modest proposal is too precious a gift for her to accept, but she refuses Penelope's offer. Dekeleti then continues with her story that she has 3 children and her eldest son is in secondary class in school and that she was falling short of money for her son's school admission. She informed her husband and asked him for money, but then he abused her and tells her to ask from her lover Paul. But one day Garicigo sent a letter telling that he would be coming to her house and to make food for him and meet her. When Garicigo orbits back into Dekeleti's life after 8 years' absence, Dekeleti is threatened along a range of fears, along with the more obvious ones such as the fear of spousal abuse. She cannot ban him from her bed since they are still married. When Dekeleti pleads with her husband to help pay for their oldest son's education, Garicigo deliberately refuses in order to open a space in which he can besmirch the reputation of Paul. He gains leverage in his campaign to destroy Paul's reputation in the community. Now Dekeleti forced in turn not simply to pay back his abuse of her, but also to wipe away the smear on Paul. Dekeleti on that day sharpens the knife and prepares a meal for her husband. After Garicigo had his meal and sleeps on the bed, Dekeleti removes his undergarments and cuts off his genitals. His son comes in and she tells him to go and call the police since she has murdered him. Penelope also comes in and gets terrified at the scene. Paul enters the room and feels anguish at what Dekeleti had underwent. Since he knew that the police will be coming, he promises that he will take care of his children while she is in prison and see to it that they get a good education. Dekeleti tragically sacrifices herself to sustain the hope that the paradigm of manhood Head has constructed in Paul can influence other men in the community, but especially her sons, whom Paul has promised to father and educate almost as though the two activities were synonymous. Paul is, in the final analysis, not so much a construction of masculinity for a time. He is a reconstruction of a line of male forebears whose stories testify to the fact that men like Garagasso are post-colonial aberrations, not the tradition for African manhood. Thank you, viewers. I hope you would find this video very helpful. Please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos. Till then, bye bye and take care.